What happened after Troy? The Odyssey explained. Odysseus' journey home. Warning: this video contains spoilers for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey and Homer's epic poem. When most people think about the Trojan War, they remember one legendary moment: the giant Trojan horse. It's one of the most famous military strategies in history. After 10 long years of war, the Greeks finally defeated Troy by hiding soldiers inside a massive wooden horse. The Trojans believed it was a gift, brought it inside their city walls, and during the night the Greek warriors emerged, opened the gates, and brought the war to an end. For the Greeks, it was a historic victory. For Odysseus, it was only the beginning of a much greater journey, because after Troy fell, his real adventure had only just begun. In fact, the story of the Odyssey takes place entirely after the Trojan War. While the Iliad tells us how the war was fought, the Odyssey tells us what happened to the man who won it. So why didn't Odysseus simply sail home? The journey from Troy to Ithaca should have taken only a few weeks. Instead, it took 10 years. His fleet was destroyed. Every one of his companions died. And he became one of the most legendary travelers in all of Greek mythology. Let's explain what happened after Troy. The first thing to understand is that victory didn't mean peace. Although the Greeks defeated Troy, many of the gods were furious. The destruction of the city, the arrogance of the victorious warriors, and the disrespect shown to the gods during and after the war brought terrible consequences. Among those angered was Poseidon, the mighty god of the sea. At first, Odysseus' journey seemed promising. He and his fleet sailed away from Troy, hoping to reunite with their families after 20 years of conflict. But the voyage quickly turned into a nightmare. One of their earliest stops was the land of the Cicones. Instead of leaving peacefully, Odysseus and his men attacked the city and looted its riches. Their greed proved costly. The Cicones regrouped, launched a powerful counterattack, and many of Odysseus' soldiers were killed. It was the first sign that the journey home would not be easy. Soon afterward, fierce storms pushed the fleet far off course, leading them to one of the most famous encounters in mythology: the island of the Lotus-Eaters. Here, Odysseus' men tasted the magical lotus plant, which caused them to forget everything about home. They no longer wanted to leave. They no longer remembered their families. They simply wanted to remain on the island forever. Realizing the danger, Odysseus physically dragged his men back to the ships before they lost themselves completely. It was the first of many temptations that threatened to end the journey. But nothing compared to what came next: the island of the Cyclops. Here, Odysseus encountered Polyphemus, the gigantic one-eyed son of Poseidon. After becoming trapped inside the Cyclops cave, Odysseus devised one of the cleverest escape plans in Greek mythology. He introduced himself as nobody, tricked Polyphemus into drinking wine, blinded him while he slept, and escaped beneath the bellies of sheep. The plan worked perfectly, until Odysseus made one fatal mistake. As his ship sailed away, he proudly shouted his real name back to the blinded giant. That moment changed everything. Polyphemus called upon his father Poseidon, asking him to curse Odysseus. From that day forward, Poseidon vowed that Odysseus would never have an easy journey home. Every storm, every shipwreck, every setback that followed became part of the sea god's revenge. The curse led Odysseus to the island of Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. Aeolus took pity on the weary hero and gifted him a magical bag containing every dangerous wind, leaving only the gentle breeze needed to reach Ithaca. Home was finally within sight. But curiosity once again became the enemy. Believing the bag contained hidden treasure, Odysseus' crew secretly opened it while he slept. The trapped winds exploded into the sky, creating a violent storm that blew the fleet all the way back across the sea. They had come within sight of home, only to lose everything in a single moment. As the journey continued, the dangers became even greater. Odysseus encountered the enchantress Circe, who transformed his men into pigs before eventually helping him after he proved his courage. He then traveled to the Underworld, where he spoke with the blind prophet Tiresias, who warned him that even greater trials still lay ahead. From there came the deadly Sirens, whose beautiful songs lured sailors to their deaths. Knowing the danger, Odysseus ordered his crew to plug their ears with beeswax, while having himself tied tightly to the ship's mast so he could hear the song without steering the ship into disaster. Soon afterward came perhaps the most terrifying passage of all. Scylla and Charybdis. On one side waited Scylla, a six-headed sea monster that devoured sailors. On the other waited Charybdis, a giant whirlpool capable of swallowing entire ships. No matter which route Odysseus chose, lives would be lost. It was one of the most heartbreaking decisions of his journey. Eventually, Odysseus and his surviving crew reached the island of the sun god Helios. Despite clear warnings not to touch the sacred cattle, hunger overcame the crew. While Odysseus slept, they slaughtered the sacred animals. The punishment was immediate. Zeus unleashed a devastating storm that destroyed the final ship and killed every remaining sailor. Only Odysseus survived, alone, broken, and still far from home. After drifting across the sea, he finally arrived on the island of Calypso, the immortal nymph who rescued him from drowning. She fell deeply in love with him and offered him something no mortal had ever received: eternal life. Stay with her forever, and he would never grow old or die. For 7 years, Odysseus lived on the island. Yet despite its beauty, he remained heartbroken. Every day, he gazed toward the horizon, longing not for immortality but for Ithaca. Eventually, the gods intervened. Hermes delivered Zeus' command that Calypso must release Odysseus. Though devastated, she helped him build a raft and watched him sail away. Even then, Poseidon refused to let him go peacefully. Another violent storm destroyed his raft before he finally reached the land of the Phaeacians, who welcomed him as a guest. For the first time, Odysseus told the complete story of everything he had endured since leaving Troy. Moved by his courage and suffering, the Phaeacians gave him a ship and safely escorted him back to Ithaca. After 20 years away, Odysseus was finally home. But his greatest challenge was still waiting. His palace had been overrun by more than 100 suitors determined to marry Penelope and seize the throne. His son, Telemachus, had grown into a young man without ever truly knowing his father. Disguised as an old beggar with Athena's help, Odysseus secretly entered his own kingdom. He tested the loyalty of his servants, reunited with Telemachus, won the famous contest of the bow, and together, father and son defeated the suitors in one final battle. For most stories, that would have been the ending. But Christopher Nolan takes the story one step further. Rather than ending with triumph alone, he explores the emotional cost of everything Odysseus experienced after Troy. The war may have ended years earlier, but its consequences followed him every single day of his journey. That's what makes the Odyssey so much more than an adventure. It's a story about survival, about guilt, about perseverance, about family, and about discovering that sometimes the hardest part isn't winning a war, it's finding your way home afterward. So, what part of Odysseus' journey after Troy fascinated you the most? Was it his encounter with the Cyclops, the Sirens, Circe, Calypso, or the emotional reunion with Penelope and Telemachus? Let me know in the comments below. And here's another question I'd love to hear your thoughts on. Which challenge do you think was Odysseus' greatest test? Was it battling monsters and angry gods, or resisting the temptation to abandon his journey and never return home? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more The Odyssey Explained videos, Greek mythology stories, hidden details, character breakdowns, and Christopher Nolan analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.